Unit 1. The United Kingdom, England. Great Britain. Great Britain is an island lying off the northwestern coastline of Europe. The English Channel separates it from the mainland in the south. The Strait of Dover, 18 miles wide, divides it from France. Great Britain is separated from Belgium and Holland by the North Sea, and from the island by the Irish Sea. The official name of Great Britain is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Great Britain is the name of the major island of the United Kingdom, including England, Scotland and Wales. The United Kingdom, or UK, comprises Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The UK is often referred to as Great Britain or the British Isles. It's an island state consisting of more than 5,000 large and small islands, the most important being the Isle of Man and the Isle of Wight. England is a part of the island of Great Britain. The Cheviot Hills and the river Tweed divide it from Scotland. No part of Great Britain lies more than 100 miles from the coast. The coastline is broken and has a few bays and excellent natural harbours. International famous ports include London, Bristol, Southampton, Portsmouth, Dover and others. Geographically, the island of Great Britain is subdivided into two main regions, Lowland Britain and Highland Britain. The highest mountain, Ben Nevis, is in Scotland. The highest peak in the Wales is Snowdon. The greater part of the land is flat. There are plenty of short rivers in Great Britain. The Severn is the longest one, while the Thames is the deepest and the most important one. Due to the influence of Gulf Stream, a warm ocean current washing Britain's western shores, the UK enjoys warmer winters and cooler summers than other countries at the same latitude. There is much rain and fog in England. October is usually the wettest month. July is the hottest, and January is the coldest one. All over the world, Britain is notorious for its fogs. For many centuries during the cold time of the year, the English people have been using coal in their fireplaces in private houses, so smoke from factories contributed a great deal to the trouble too. That kind of fog and smoke English people used to call smoke. An unusually thick smoke in London in 1962 caused the deaths of some 4,000 people. During the 1960s and 1970s, laws were passed under which using open coal fires in homes in the city area was forbidden. The laws stopped much of pollution from the factories too. The ordinary damp mists which afflict all parts of the country from the time to time are no worse than similar mists in many other countries. The flora of the British Isles is varied and the fauna is similar to that of the northwest Europe. The country is not very rich in mineral resources. Over 3/4 of Britain's lands is used for farming. Farms produce nearly half of the food that Britain needs. The UK is a highly developed industrial country too, known as a producer and exporter of machinery, electronics, ships, aircraft and navigation equipment. The capital of UK is London, in England. The capital of Wales is Cardiff, and the Scottish capital is at Edinburgh. The capital of Northern Ireland is Belfast. Britain has been many centuries in the making. The Romans conquered most part of Britain, but were unable to subdue the independent tribes in the west and in the north. Further, waves of invaders followed: Angles, Saxons, Jutes, Vikings and Normans. All these contributed to mixture we call the English. For many centuries this country was known simply as England. It had a strong army and navy. It waged numerous colonial wars. England, once the workshop of the world, was the first to become a highly developed industrial country. Physical features. Britain constitutes the greater part of British Isles. The largest of the islands is Great Britain. The next largest comprises Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic. Western Scotland is ringed by the large archipelago known as Hebrides, and to the northeast of Scottish mainland are the Orkney and the Shetland. All these have administrative ties with the mainland, but the Isle of Man in the Irish Sea and the Channel Islands between Great Britain and France are largely self-governing and are not part of the United Kingdom. With an area of some kilometers, Great Britain is just under 1,000 from the south coast to the extreme north of Scotland and just under 500 kilometers across in the widest part. The climate is generally mild and temperate. Prevailing winds are southwesterly. Temperature is rarely above 32 Celsius or below minus 10 Celsius. The average annual rainfall is more than 1,600 millimeters in the mountainous areas of the west and the north, but less than 800 millimeters over the central and eastern parts. Rain is fairly well distributed throughout the year, but on average March to June are the driest months and the September to January the wettest. During May, June and July, the months of longest daylight, the mean daily duration of the sunshine varies from 5 hours in northern Scotland to 8 hours in the Isle of Wight. During the months of shortest daylight, November, December and January, sunshine is at minimum, with an average of an hour a day in northern Scotland and 2 hours a day on the south coast of England. England under foreign kings. The invaders known as Vikings or Danes returned again and again to attack England. At first they didn't settle and the English had to pay tribute. In the 9th century they conquered and settled in the extreme north and west of Scotland and also some coastal regions of Ireland. They held the English crown for 24 years. 3 Danish kings, one after the other, ruled over England. One of them, Canute, was at the same time of King of England, Denmark, Norway and Sweden. The rule of Danish kings over England came to an end soon after Canute's death in 1035. Now the Normans began to attack the coast of England from the Normandy, France. In 166, an invading army of Normans won the victory at the Battle of Hastings. As a result of the single battle, William, Duke of Normandy, was crowned King of England and became known in the popular history as William the Conqueror. Unlike the Germanic invasions, the Norman invasion was small scale. The Normans didn't settle in special areas of settlement. They were given ownership of land and of the people living on it. The feudal system was introduced, where the lords and the barons were Normans and the peasants were Saxons. The invaders spoke French, and it was the language of upper classes and the government. English was the language of lower classes. King Alfred the Great. For 200 years the English people were at war with Danes coming from Denmark and the Norsemen invading from Scandinavia. King Alfred of the Saxon Kingdom of Wessex first took part in the battles when he was a boy of 16. After King Saint Etheldred's death, the Witan means the meeting of wise men. passed over his two sons and elected his younger brother Alfred king. The Witten's duty was to select kings from the royal house, but it was not necessarily the heir who was selected. The Witten, so it turned out, chose well, for Alfred proved to be a great ruler. He organized resistance to the Vikings and built a fleet of ships and fortifications on the coast. Under his leadership, the small kingdoms were united to fight against the invaders. King Alfred was not only an able warrior but also a dedicated scholar. His real greatness lay in the arts of peace. After the victory over the Danes, he did much for educating his people, opening schools for the nobility and asking scholars to translate into English masterpieces of world literature. He is also famous for working out of English code. King Alfred is known as Alfred the Great, the only monarch in English history to be given this title. The Silent Sea in the Sea. It was a busy, noisy town, where large crowds gathered to welcome pirate ships that dropped anchor full of treasure. Now it lies 18 meters under the sea, and tourists gaze through glass-bottomed boats at old walls covered with coral, while fish swim through empty windows and doorways. The undersea town lying off the coast of Jamaica, famous as Port Royal, headquarters of most terrible of all buccaneers, Captain Henry Morgan. When Morgan arrived from attacking and looting the Cuban port of Puerto Príncipe in 1668, he brought such an enormous treasure that his own share was 50,000 gold coins. No one knows where he concealed this treasure nor what happened to it. Many have searched for Captain Morgan's gold, but it has never been found. Port Royal stood on an island of coral sand at the mouth of Sheltered Harbor. The first settlement began more than four and a half centuries ago, when Spanish captains dragged their ships ashore on the island to clean them of shellfish and weeds. A century and a half after the first Spaniards landed, there was a small permanent town known as Kagway. Later, when the English captured the island, they changed its name to Port Royal. It was they who turned it into a pirate base. The English government of those days found pirates very useful for attacking the enemy. Pirate captains were given letters to authority permitting them to attack Spanish ships, because these pirates smoked their meat supplies over small fires known as beacons. They became known as buccaneers. Later, when England had signed a treaty with Spain, she agreed to suppress the buccaneers of Port Royal, but Captain Morgan broke this treaty by attacking Spanish Panama and capturing over 750,000 of gold coins. The Spaniards were furious, so both Morgan and the governor of the island were arrested and shipped to London. King Charles II protected Morgan, who had promised the king a great sum of money, and the unfortunate governor was blamed for everything instead of Morgan. He was imprisoned in the Tower while Morgan was knighted and sent back as the lieutenant governor and the chief judge of Port Royal. The end of Buccaneer Town came in June 1692, when a sudden earthquake opened wide cracks in the earth. Great waves tore shops from their anchorage and swept them out to sea. Those that struggled back to port again found that the land had sunk and most of town was gone. Streets of buildings, people, treasure all had disappeared under the waves. Today, the town of Kingston has replaced Port Royal, and only a few hardy fishing people live on the remains of the sandy island where bloodthirsty pirates drank and fought with each other. The town they built is a playground for skin divers, underwater photographers and seekers of lost pirate treasure. It is one of the sites of the modern Jamaica and all tourists go to see.